Right now in 2022, there is a wealth of marketing resources and strategies and tools at our fingertips. And the brands that are thriving in the online marketing world are not the brands with the best logos and the best fonts and the best designed website, or the brands with the most advanced marketing strategy. The brands that stand out the most are the brands with the most clearly defined messaging. At the end of the day, the one thing that you have that no one else can copy is your message. And it's the one thing that can connect with your people in a way that no one and nothing else can. Hi, I'm Brittany McBean. I am a launch strategist and copywriter, and when clients come to us with a already written funnel that isn't converting, the biggest difference between what we do and what they had is not the tagging strategy, it's not an advanced marketing strategy, or whether we do a webinar or a live launch challenge or an evergreen funnel. It is the messaging. The conversions jump when we put the effort into the messaging. So today I'm going to teach you how to think through and what questions to ask when it comes to uncovering your uncopyable, high converting messaging strategy for your brand. The first tip and the most important thing is that I encourage you to develop your brand messaging strategy over time. If you just go all in on your brand messaging and you create your beautiful design slide deck of your brand and your ICA and what you stand for and your offer, you're going to be wasting your time, because the most important thing that you can do is to listen to your people. If you don't do that, you're going to get it wrong. So start with what you have, start where you are, and workshop your messaging. Paying attention to what works, paying attention to what people respond to, paying attention to what didn't work, paying attention to what other people are doing in the marketing that you think in your market that you just think is stupid, that you think you should do better, and start talking about that. Workshop out your messaging. Use your content, your email, your podcast, your YouTube. Use that as your sandbox and develop your messaging strategy based on how your people are connecting and responding with what you're saying. As with everything, start minimum viable. Start with your hypothesis and what you want to say, and then let your people respond to that and build from there. When you're beginning to formulate your messaging strategy, your goal is to seek clarity on your marketing goals, your people, your offer, and who you are as the entrepreneur, as the coach, as the educator, as the business owner, as the person creating this brand. You also want to think through your story. How does it connect with people? How does it relate to what you do? Your origin story, your transformation story, your where you are now story, all of those stories, offers, how they actually serve and help people, how they connect with each other. You also want to think about your people and who you love working with. Who do you light up when you work with? Who do you serve the best? Who do you get the biggest transformations? And who do you hate working with? Who are those soul-sucking vampires that make your life miserable? Don't talk to them in your messaging. You can talk to them in real life, but don't speak to them in your messaging. And then of course you do want to think through your values and your priorities. I talk about this again and again, but I think it is so important to lean into and lead with your values. Be as polarizing as you want to be, because you deserve to give people the opportunity to vote with their dollar. And if you don't tell them what you believe in and what you advocate for and what you support, you're taking that opportunity away from them. And you're also allowing them to make another buying decision with someone who maybe they don't agree with, but they're not saying anything either, so they don't know the difference. As a side note, for a comprehensive brand messaging strategy for your overarching brand, you're going to have some core umbrella messaging that speaks to the people in your audience at multiple different stages. So your brand messaging for your entire business, your entire brand, is going to be different than messaging for your offers. Each individual offer, whether it is an online product, a physical product, no matter how big or small it is, each individual offer has its own messaging, because that is for one specific person at one specific place in their journey with one problem and one clear outcome. Your brand messaging is going to be the umbrella that covers all of your offers, and your offer messaging is going to be really, really specific to that outcome. So your brand messaging is going to be covered on your website and maybe your welcome sequence, but your sales page is going to be that messaging that's really specific to your offer. So right now you're probably saying, cool, Brittany, so I don't pick my messaging. I just listen to my people and I need to find these things. Great. Now what do I do? Fair enough. Great question. I'm going to give you some questions that you can start to ask yourself to uncover these things as you go. These are the questions you're going to return to again and again and again. Your message can evolve. It will evolve. If you are still using the same messaging that you were 3 years ago, that's a problem. The world has changed. Your people have changed. You have changed. Your brand has changed. Let your brand continue to evolve. Let your messaging be a working document and keep returning to questions like these that I'm going to share with you over and over again so that you can begin to find your relevant, uncopyable, high converting messaging right now. All right, so when we're uncovering our marketing goals, you want to ask yourself questions like, what is the job to be done for this piece of copy? It needs to do that job. What do you want your target audience to do when they read this piece of copy or when they read this message? Where do they go next? What action do you want your reader to take? And then how does this messaging fit into your brand as a whole? All of these puzzle pieces fit together, and if you just have the same messaging across the board, it's gonna really fall flat. And if your messaging doesn't connect at all, it's gonna be very confusing. So one piece of copy needs to connect to the next piece of copy. The messaging needs to be one holistic umbrella that all fits together. All right, when you're uncovering questions about your people and trying to figure out who you're talking to, what they need to hear, and how that influences your messaging, you're gonna focus on psychographics over demographics. 98% of the time, somebody will hand me a brand guide, a messaging guide, a strategy that someone has put together for them, and it has their ICA listed as a rich white man. And then we dive into their audience, and that is not at all who they are actually serving. They have a diverse audience with multiple genders and multiple gender expressions and multiple identities and multiple races and living all over the country, yet somehow it's always a white man in New York or California. It's always New York or California. Demographics don't matter unless they do, and if they do, then you'll know. Focus on the psychographics. The psychographics being, how do they think? So the questions that you can ask yourself or be really aware of are, what questions are they asking you or your team repeatedly? What things keep coming up? Answer that in your messaging. That's going to go into your entire brand messaging. What are they really good at? What uniquely qualifies them to succeed with what you offer? And what are they really bad at? What do they need some help with? What are the biggest obstacles they're having when they come to you for help? What are they actually looking for? What are they actively seeking? It's probably not your product if they're not aware of that, but what kind of things or transformations or outcomes are they actually looking for? What do they think they need versus what you know that they need? Because guess what? If you lead with what you know that they need, but that's not what they think they need, you're gonna have a problem. It's not gonna connect. You have to start with where they are in their head. What have they tried before? What solutions, free, paid, large scale, small scale, what have they tried before to solve this problem? And then what worked for them and what didn't work for them? You need to be able to validate all of their efforts up to finding you. Otherwise, you're just going to create a lot of shame and a lot of resistance around trying something new. And then yes, sometimes the demographics do matter, especially if we're talking about generation. If you're speaking to a much older demographic, then your stuff has to be crystal clear. They're not going to be as tech savvy. They need to know what to do next, where to go. It needs to be really, really simple. And they're not going to be in a super oversaturated market. So you can kind of use some of the kind of same old tricks that everybody else is using out there because they're not going to be oversaturated. But if you're talking to a Gen Z audience and there isn't a lot of humor or sarcasm in your copy, if your punctuation is on point, if you're not using any contractions or you're not using any slang, side note, if you're not Gen Z, don't use Gen Z slang. It doesn't make you look cool. But you know what I mean. Talking casually, that's not going to connect with your people. So yes, demographics do matter when they matter. You can think about generation, their technical abilities, their level of awareness, their market saturation, their accessibility. Those things are important, but the psychographics are going to give you way more of a powerful messaging strategy than you will ever find if you are talking to a 55-year-old white man who drives a Porsche in California. Also, if you're creating an ICA and they are white or they look and live and love just like you, and you don't teach people or work with people that all look, live, and love just like you, that's a problem. That's worth considering. Make sure that your ICAs don't all look like you. All right, now when thinking about how to position and message around your offer and how that fits into the entire brand messaging puzzle, I want you to ask yourself, what problem does your product or service solve? What solution are you offering? What makes it really hard to buy your offer? Why would people be hesitant or resistant? You don't need to fix that necessarily. You certainly don't need to try to convince them, but you do need to be aware of those barriers that are already implanted in their minds that are making them hesitant about moving forward with your offer. What are you really selling? Going back to that, what are they really wanting question? What are you actually offering? What is that like 5-layer deep outcome? Not just the promise of your program or your offer, but what happens as a result of that? What happens 5 years down the road? What happens 5 layers deep? What are those moments in their life that are profoundly impacted because they have the solution or the outcome or the transformation that you offer them through your program. And then just even more simplistic than that, what will they be able to accomplish once they have your outcome and your promised solution? What are the top features and benefits of your product, and how are they unique to you and you alone? And what do you teach, or what does your offer provide that is different than anyone else out there? Not just the features, not just the benefits, but what lens or what values or what priorities do you put on your program that is different than anyone else? And then when you're starting to ask questions about yourself and your brand and your business and all of that stuff to uncover what about you should lead with in your messaging, start to ask yourself, how did you get started? What's your superhero origin story? How does it relate to your people? How does it matter within the confines and the structure of your entire messaging puzzle? What is your philosophy? What is your vision? What is your mission? What are your non-negotiable values? That maybe this isn't a list of 20 things, but these are the top 3 things that if you don't align with me on this, we're not meant for each other. I'm not taking your money. You shouldn't be working with me. You should not be giving me your money. If these top core, most important non-negotiable values do not align, we're not for each other. Plain and simple. And then what are those core values that if people do align on, then no matter where else they fall, no matter whether they disagree with you on something else, if they align on these top values, you're going to be a wonderful fit for each other. You're going to work well together, and they're going to be able to get the transformation that you're offering. Who do you absolutely under no circumstance want to work with? Never, ever, ever in a million years. That matters. Who do you want to work with again and again and again and again and again? That matters too. You can ask yourself, what is your sixth sense, the thing that you do better than anyone else in the world that no one else can do? And it comes so easy to you, and everyone else thinks it's so hard. They're always like, wow, you are so good at that. And you're like, no, that's just how my brain works. It's usually the thing that you want to not raise your prices on because you think it's easy, but it's not. It's just that you're actually really good at it, and it's really hard for other people. That's a really good indication that that's something you should be leaning into in your messaging. What are you hearing from your people? What questions are they asking you specifically that maybe they're not asking anyone else? What kind of things do they seem to be consistently surprised by that you're surprised that they're surprised by? What things are popping up in testimonials or case studies or just the feedback that you're getting? You can ask yourself why you are the perfectly suited person to help them. The best coach, the best service provider, the best strategist, whatever you do, the best teacher, you are perfectly suited to serve them where they are because of blank. One of my favorite places to find my messaging is to think about what my peers say that drive me nuts. I love hearing somebody say something that I could not disagree with more. That I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's so stupid. I can't believe you're saying that. I'm not going to go bash them, but I'm going to go create some messaging or some content or some pillar messaging around not that, around the opposite of that. Because if that's what's being spoken in the industry, but I don't agree with it, or I'm seeing otherwise, or I have a different lens, it's not that my lens is the only one that matters, but I have a perspective into my industry that says, that's not it. That's not true. I'm going to go create some core messaging around that so that people start to see me as different than that other person. And then you can just ask yourself, what kind of vibe do you want your brand to have? Look, if you are not a funny person or you're not a sarcastic person, that's okay. Your brand does not have to be funny to succeed online. But if you have a personal brand where people are engaging with you, the CEO, as the teacher, the educator, the face of the brand, and you're not funny, don't try to make a funny brand. If you have a product and you are the CEO of a business and it is completely outside of that product, maybe it's a SaaS tool or a physical product, and you want that product to have a funny brand, go for it. But if your personality does not match the vibe that you want for your business and you have a personal brand, that's going to be a problem. So figure out the vibe that you like, what you connect with, what you respond to, and then what comes most naturally to you. Mash that up together, and that can be the vibe of your brand. In general, when you're thinking about your messaging, I think the most simple way of approaching it and thinking about it is to think of it as a Venn diagram. So in one circle, we have your people. I would venture to say that this is the biggest circle in the Venn diagram, but we have your people's lived experiences, the thoughts and the emotions and the circumstances that they are actively expressing and actively experiencing. That is the biggest Venn diagram. That's the biggest circle in the Venn diagram. Then the other circle we have is your offer. How does it work? How does it solve their problem? What promise is it offering? What problem does it solve? What solution is it offering? What features and benefits? And how does it stand out? And how is it different? All that stuff. But your offer matters, or your offers. You can put them all together and say, what problem, overarching umbrella problem, do my offers solve? That is my brand messaging. And then that third bubble is going to be you. That's a big one, right? we have your people, we have your offer, and then we have you. What are your values? What are your priorities? What is your lens? What is your differentiator? What makes you uniquely suited to serve your people? If you can start creating those circles, asking those questions that I just listed to start to find the answers and then mashing those together, that center is going to be your messaging. And the more you engage with your people, the more you connect with them, the more content or copy that you create and put out there and allow people to react to, the more those circles in the Venn diagram are going to start to fill themselves out. So I want to know, of all of those questions that I listed for you of how to find your goals and your people and your offer and find out more about you, which one is the hardest to answer for you? Which one can you not find that information or that material or that answer no matter how hard you look? Let me know and I can create some videos around uncovering those parts of your brand so that you can start having that message rise to the surface organically without you trying to stuff a square peg into a round hole and makes the messaging fit that doesn't really fit for you. If you've kind of started to uncover your messaging and you want to turn this into copy, I have a great free resource for you. It's super simple. It's called 9 Ways to Write More Better. And it's just 9 ways that you can start to make your copy come to life and connect with your people through your personality so that your messaging clearly translates into copy that connects with the reader. If this video was helpful to you, if you liked it, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and like it, subscribe so that you can keep seeing the rest of the videos about messaging that we'll be creating later this month. All right, I'll see you in the next video.